Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode where we are discussing women and entrepreneurship in the startup space, the tech space, and in anything having to do with doing business and solving problems. So today I'm here with Radhika. I hope I said your name right.
You did, yeah.
Yes. And she is the co founder and CEO of Ndovu, which is a digital investments platform. They've been at it since 2021. And Radhika is a Kenyan who is pushing the needle in digital investments in Africa. So, Radhika, please, is there anything I missed in your introduction?
Not at all, but thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Awesome. So let's start at the very beginning. Ndovu started in 2021. You are part of a team of other co-founders. What got you all on this journey?
Yeah, so it was really, so I'm Kenyan born and raised, but I spent some time in the UK studying and working. And when I first graduated university, I didn't really know what to do. A lot of people were going into pensions, but I decided to go into investments. I was at Deloitte for a while, and I realized instead of being behind the spreadsheets and really looking at the numbers, I wanted to be more with people. And my role at Deloitte was to advise big, large investment companies where to take their money and invest it. And then I moved over to the world's largest asset manager called BlackRock, where I advised pension funds, corporations, institutions where to take their hard earned money and invest. But then in 2019, my husband and I decided to move back to Kenya. And of course, I was lost, so didn't really know what I was going to do. But luckily for me, I was surrounded by a lot of female entrepreneurs whilst growing up. So my grandmother started a business in the 1960s, and she was very successful. My mother had a lifestyle business, as you would call it, around the kids. And so I always grew up with female working and running and being in control and making decisions. And I knew that at some point in my life, I wanted to start a business. I just didn't know what it was. And when I came back to Kenya, I looked at all sorts of business, fashion, skincare, chocolate making, all these other ideas. And the thing what I realized was after all these coffees that I also had with asset managers, CEOs, etc., that there was a huge gap in the market when it came to financial education and literacy, which is not just a huge gap in Kenya, it's the same across globally, whichever country you go to. And I thought, you know what, I think we can do something in investments, but it's going to take a lot of education. And then I realized I don't know how to start a business. So I'm a little lazy. I was like, what is the quickest way to shorten that feedback loop? How do I go and start to learn a business? Who do I speak to? And then I came across the Antler Accelerator program, and I applied, I got in, and we learned how to start a business in 6 weeks. And it was exactly the opposite way that I would have done it, which is great. And I'll, because this is really, yeah, because this is really important to know. Typically, as a human, you'd think, okay, if I'm going to start a business, I need to source the product or the thing that I'm going to sell. But actually, at Antler, they make you think of it in reverse. Go speak to your potential target audience and ask them what are their pain points, what are they missing in their lives. And I think it's a catch 22 because sometimes consumers don't know they're missing something until you bring it. But it gives you a good idea of saying, okay, actually, we're not looking for the supply part of the product. We're actually going to go and find the demand first. And when we were at Antler, we actually had 101 customers saying that they would invest $3.1 million if we started the company. And actually, I was very lucky to find my co founders in the same pool of people. And it's true, in a business, even as a female, you do need support because we are building a tech business. I know nothing about tech. And it was just about being really honest about my strengths and weaknesses. So I'm very good at the investment side, fundraising, sales, whereas my co-founders are better. One of them is his name is Ro. He's the chief operations officer. He's good at regulation, expansion, and trades. And then we have another founder called GP. He's very good at tech. And so everyone wears different hats, and it's really what brought us together. And fast forward, we applied to the Antler IC investment committee. So basically, after the program, you can take your business idea and say to them, hey, listen, I have a deck. This is what we want to do. Will you fund us? But actually, they didn't give us funding. They said, one of the biggest challenges we see with your business is your regulatory requirements, and we don't think you'll be able to get a license. And we said, that's fine. Thank you so much for everything you've given us because we learned loads. But we'll go and try this on our own. And we did. And fast forward, here we are.
Wow. So you had that moment where you kind of had to, it was like a key step, it was a milestone
Yeah.
where you had your challenge, a little bit of like a roadblock, but then you said you still want to keep going with what you were doing at Ndovu. So what did you and the team do to keep moving forward beyond?
Yeah, so I think so. I think this is really useful information because typically when you get your first no, you're like, oh, it's kind of heartbreaking. But to be honest, in entrepreneurship, you have to be ready to get a million no's. I think every day I probably get six no's and they don't even faze me anymore. I just focus on the yeses. But what we decided to do was saying, okay, we have a brilliant idea. How much money at the very least do we need in order to have this to MVP level? And luckily for us, my two co-founders are slightly more senior, so am I. We put in some of our savings, but we also asked our friends and family if they could help us with some money. And I remember our first ever, we entered lots of competitions. And in our first ever competition, the number one award was $10,000. And I remember being able to, we pitched, we won it, and that was really the kickstart of it. So we could afford to start to build something to test it to see, okay, do people actually need what we are building? And then it was like saying, okay, we need to really define our strategy. And actually, we didn't do this that well, but I do wish and I do advise, and you read it everywhere, go speak to your customers. And I think we did some of it to some extent. But the product that we initially built was a little bit more for people who understand finance. And it wasn't as simple as I thought it wasn't as simple as today. So, and that goes to being like when you have wireframes, just go speak to people because the feedback you get is vastly different than your understanding. And till today, there's so many assumptions in my mind that are proven wrong by just having customer feedback. Yeah.
You mentioned that at the very beginning you did your research and you could talk to people, and then there's something that you mentioned about testing. So you got that first 10K, and then you used it to not develop some product that you're like, this is it, but you said you used it to test. Were there any significant changes during that testing period from the initial idea to what Ndovu is today?
So for us, there wasn't. So sorry, I used an acronym earlier. I said MVP. MVP is a minimum viable product, and that is a testing
Yes.
product. I know you know that, but I was just making
Of
sure.
course, yes, absolutely.
And so the idea is that you don't want to go out with anything perfect. In entrepreneurship, it's not about being perfect. So this is also another learning. When you go to corporate, I went to a white collar, proper corporate Deloitte where they say dot the I's and make sure the T's are crossed, make sure formatting is right. In entrepreneurship, all of that you have to forget until you get to a certain level. And in the beginning, you have to be scrappy. You have to build something that you're not proud of that needs to go out. So I remember when we first onboarded the 100 customers, we were using a Typeform. So it's a software that looks like an actual app. It's not. And we were just onboarding customers. We were getting their money invested manually. We were taking payments manually, and we had them onboarded. And in the meantime, with the 10 grand, we then started putting together a very basic app. For us, we're very lucky. The original concept didn't change. And Ndovu's vision really is to drive economic empowerment across Africans. And we started with the middle income and high net worth individuals because we know that they are a little bit more easier to educate because they have an understanding of investments, global and local. And so for us, the the actual core of our business didn't change. However, the user journey has changed significantly since we have started.
Wow, amazing. So you had talked about empowering Africans with financial knowledge and with these opportunities through Ndovu. What exactly are the gaps in this
Yeah,
currently in Kenya as well as in Africa? Because you're operating in Africa, right?
correct. Yeah.
Yes.
So, oh, the gaps. They're huge in terms of economic empowerment. Well, first of all, we were the first fintech in Kenya to give you access to global markets. As a millennial who owns an iPhone, MacBook, Samsung, who watches Netflix, who listens to Spotify, we were the first company to actually give you access to owning those companies. It didn't exist before because if you wanted to invest, you would have to go to a private banker and they would need a large amount of money as well. So the second challenge is across Africa, if you want to access global markets, you need a lot of money. And what Ndovu did was bring that down to $50 or 7,500 shillings. And that allows people to start becoming familiar with investing. There's a really interesting stat actually that my head of sales uses, and she said that in Africa, when you compare it to the how many Americans, white Americans have investments, it's only 10% of African families actually invest, whereas 83% of white Americans will have stocks and shares in their portfolio. And so when you look at that divide, what is the reason? It was inaccessibility, really high minimums to get started. And before us, actually, if you wanted to invest, you had to go find the office, you had to go fill in paperwork, KYC super long.
Yeah.
And we just digitized all of it to make it super easy. And actually, recently in January, we tried a minimum. So as I mentioned earlier, the minimum was $50. We actually brought it down to 500 shillings, and this was one of the assumptions that was debunked. So I don't know if you know, but we have the Ndovu Money Market Fund. So first of all, pinch me moment. Never did I think leaving BlackRock I would have my very own fund. Super proud of this. It took a lot of work to get up, but essentially it has been our fastest growing fund. And essentially, what a money market fund is, for those of you who don't know, is it's a simple and easy way to invest while protecting your initial capital, but then also earning enough return so that you're outpacing the rising cost of living, and that's also known as inflation. And yeah, so we launched this fund, and we had the minimum for this fund at 500 shillings, and all our global products were at 7,500 shillings. And recently, we decided to reduce the minimum just to do a test and do like a new year, new offer. And actually, my hypothesis that Kenyans weren't so familiar and educated about global markets was debunked. Wow. And actually, the learning was that actually it wasn't the fact that people can't invest with people didn't know about financial products globally. They actually were too. My assumption now is that they wanted to try it with a lower minimum, because obviously investing is scary and it's emotional. So just yeah, through that we've learned that actually if you are able to bring down all those barriers, we can actually drive financial growth for individuals. And one thing I'm really proud about is that in 2024, the average return our users experienced on the global side of the portfolio was 17% on the dollar.
Wow.
I know markets did really well. However, I don't. The fact that we were able to hand select the right type of investments in the technology space, the right type of funds in the healthcare space, goes to show that there's value that we drive. And the last thing that we do by driving, in order to drive economic empowerment, is we are trying to simplify investments for all. Whether you'll be surprised how many well-influential people working in finance, working as a doctor, have no idea how to invest. So what we also learned is that we have to simplify everything. And the way we do that is through our journey of how you interact on the app, the wording. We also offer like free education. We run webinars, you name it. But the idea is that we invest in educating you, because we believe that if we educate you well on how to invest and we deliver a product that's worth holding, you'll be with us for the long term. But a lot of investors, when I was starting off, said, I don't want to be the one that pays the school fees. I don't want you to have to go educate everyone, and then the competition comes in and then takes your customers. And I said, well, don't worry about that. We'll make sure that we build brand loyalty and trust so that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, very lots of challenges across driving economic empowerment in Africa, and you can do it in different ways too.
Yeah, and it's really important right now because you'll go on social media or on YouTube and you're like trying to figure out how best to invest or to grow whatever it is that you have. And there's all this information, and that's definitely a journey that I've been on,
Yeah.
where you're trying to really understand this whole finance thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find a lot of people on YouTube, on Instagram, on different social media platforms that are talking about opportunities that are only available in other countries.
Exactly.
And then you start trying to explore what's actually available. Well, for us here in Kenya, what can we do? And there's so little information.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what Ndovu is doing really well is kind of the simplification, which you mentioned. you have masterclasses on the platform. And not to be like a whole marketing person for Ndovu, but I have used your platform and I think
Yeah.
it's incredible. In this journey of making things simpler for people to understand and making things more accessible in the investment space, you at Ndovu, you have the value of in economic equality. So investing in financial knowledge and all these things, you're looking for it to be equal across the board. And so, what was the story behind that? Why is that such a high value
Yeah.
at Ndovu?
So that's more of a personal, I guess, a personal question as well. It's really important for us to empower everyone, not just the male or the female. Either way, everyone needs to be empowered. I'm a mom of a son and a daughter, and typically in the African context, actually, and in the Indian context, I grew up. Why do you need to start a business? You're fine. You're a woman. You can stay at home. It still kind of comes out of some aunties' mouths, which is kind of like, hey, we live in 2020s, like, hey, but it happens because that's culturally. And I think the real focus for me was to say, if we're going to create this platform, we have to do it equally. And I'm not creating this amazing trading tool that is mainly marketed towards males. And for me, being able to do it not just in terms of male and female, but across all education levels, across all income brackets was really important, like equality through and through. One thing is more because of a personal ambition. I actually, I'm here to make money, but that's not my sole purpose. For me, it's to say I delivered an incredible product that helped millions of people achieve their financial goals, whatever they might be. And like 5 years in the road, someone taps me, is like, hey, I invested in Ndovu and now my son's gone to university. So being able to provide equality throughout the product is very important. Another way I achieve that is to always make sure we, as an organization, understand why we're doing what we're doing and starting with why rather than how. And then we have a lot of females on our team as well. And there's no bias to it, but I want to create more jobs, especially in finance, for more females to learn to grow. And there's actually been significant growth, like in terms of equal opportunities, even in the way we hire. Typically, you'd think that I would want to go out there and get the best of the best. So people who've done this before, we do a part of that, but we also take university students who haven't been given the opportunity, spend time training them. So they go through this extensive 2-week training program,
Yeah.
and they come out and we give them the opportunity to actually build their skill set. So it's all about how do we drive equality through the investments, through the way we hire, the education that we provide, and how do we get it to be a more level playing field? Because unfortunately, the game is rigged.
So there's this really great statement that I've seen on your social media, which is treating yourself through like financial investment and making that a part of your self-love, because self-love is a big thing right now where it's like take care of yourself, and in the midst of all the work that you're doing, remember to treat yourself. So what does that mean for you, and why should women make this something?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of ways to think of this. So much is coming to mind, and I want to structure it well. So, firstly, I think culturally, women are more giving. And I think this is super important for females to learn to build their own financial security, because I think once you are financially free as a woman, no one can tell you otherwise, right? You get this other inner strength, and I think that's where the campaign actually first stemmed from. Like, treat yourself first, and it doesn't mean that you need large amounts of money, but think about putting away 500 shillings, because you can do that through the Ndovu Money Market Fund. Think away putting small amounts of money that are separate for you. So, before you go out there and give your children all your love and give your husband everything that he needs, and your family and your sisters and your brothers, actually start with you. Whilst we were building this company, I think we did a podcast on Capital FM about the Black Fund. Was it Black Fund? Black Tax, sorry, Black Tax. It's a very big culture amongst Kenyans to be reliant on other family members. And so I really believe, like, it's okay to do black tax, provided you structure yourself well. So
Before you
yeah.
move on, could you please explain for those who might not know
Yeah.
what exactly is black tax?
So typically, black tax is where your family members who are not taking their life seriously, or they have, expect you who's gone to work and is making something of themselves to give them a handout, which I think is so unfair, because you're the one going to work, you're the one putting in the hard work, but yet you are expected to help everyone else. And it's not just even your first family, like the four members. It's your aunties, your uncles, your second, third auntie, uncle, and
Cousins.
cousins. No, that's not fair. And we did a lot of research and we learned that Kenyans, the reason you do that is because of an emotional feeling. We've been brought up to believe that you need to look after others first and not yourself. And as a result of that, people give away all their savings. But the day they need it, that's when they're having suicidal thoughts, anxiety, depression. And so we think that there's a great way to challenge black tax, and that is by saying, okay, I'm going to give myself some self love first. And the way I suggest doing this is that let's say you have a salary of 50,000 shillings. And from the 50,000 shillings, you're going to say, today, this month, I'm going to put 2,000 shillings in my black tax fund. And let's say that month, no one comes to you. Great, you have 2,000 shillings. Next month, you put in another 2,000 shillings, and you're like, great. And someone comes to you, your sister, and say, hey, listen, I'm really stuck. I need money. And you're like, listen, I only have 4,000 shillings. And she's like, no, I need 10. Be like, I only have 4,000 shillings. This is what I can do for you. And that's it. And then you continue building that fund up so that in that instance, you don't feel guilty for not helping, but you've done what you can commit. And then the going back to like pay yourself first is to say, actually, there's some rules of thumbs here when it comes to money. The goal in life is always to increase your income, and that's what we've been taught. Like, go out there, get a better salary, get paid more, become more valuable, learn another skill, go do all these great things. But when you start making money, human nature is for us to spend more. And it's very important for you to actually learn to live below your means. So as your salary is increasing, let's aim to keep your expenses lower, because those are the things you're not paying attention to. And the rule of thumb is that you should be able to save anywhere from 15 to 20% of your salary. Now, saving is not good enough because things become more expensive. We need to make sure that we're working smarter and investing smarter so we don't have to work so hard at work. The rule of thumb after that is to say, of that 15% that you're saving, how much do I put towards my black tax fund? 1%. How much do I put towards emergency savings? About 5%. And the goal is to then invest the rest of the money. Depending on your age, if you're young, you're going to have 60% of that invested in slightly growth products, like holding the technology fund, investing. Some people love to do crypto. I wouldn't recommend it if you're a new investor. And then you can have the remaining 40% of that in low risk money market funds. So yeah, feel free to check out all our master classes. This is all there. But the goal is that we would like everyone to think about paying themselves first, because if you think about it, you are a business, right? You go to work, brand visibility is very important. You go to work, you have to think about being valuable so that you can keep your job or get that promotion. So start seeing yourself as a business. And in order for you to do that, you need to pay yourself first. So those are a few concepts on why we put together that campaign.
Yeah. And for anybody who got lost in any of the terminologies or the technicalities about everything she shared, we will be linking everything about Ndovu in this episode in the description.
Yeah.
So to just bring this back to your story as an individual, you shared about how you have a family and you started this business because you saw the potential of what it would be like to do what you're passionate about outside of working in an organization. You wanted to start something of your own. And so what has you being on this journey meant for you and your family?
Oh, great question. So first of all, I'm very grateful that we live in Kenya because it takes a village to raise children. And I didn't feel it so much with my first child, but my second child, I definitely felt the transition. So what it means is that as a mum, you make sacrifices. So you're not there for every bath time. So next week we have an investor summit, and it's a big summit. You want to be there because you need to be visible. I know I'm going to miss about 4 bath times because there's events in the evenings. And actually, as a mom, you do feel guilty because you think, oh my God, A, is this worth it? I'm building this company, I'm working so hard, but I'm also missing out on precious moments. But I also believe in life that everything does come at once and you have to just navigate the juggling of balls, and sometimes you drop something. As long as it's not really meaningful relationships, like the relationship with your parents, your husband, and your children, the rest can be mended. And I think for me as a entrepreneur, this journey's taught me to set boundaries. So the things that I will and will not accept with any relationship, even with work. So I don't take any work calls between 6 to 7:30. It's my time with my kids and my family. However, on occasions, those rules have to be bent, like this investor summit coming up. The other thing that it's taught me to be is very sure in what I want. And of course, that takes time. So you need to sit down and say, okay, what type of mother am I going to be while I'm running this company? I'm not going to be that mother that attends all the mom stuff, but I'm going to be okay with that. Who am I going to be as a wife? What are the things I can and cannot do? And have that open conversation with the other half to say, hey, listen, I'm drowning. What is really important for you? And then showing up to what's really important. And it takes time and it's hard work. And I'm not that kind of person. I like to believe I can have it all, but I know somewhere there's something dropping, but I'm okay with it. That's why I'm cool.
Yeah.
But realistically, entrepreneurship, especially in Kenya, is possible. I couldn't imagine doing this in the UK without help. So we're very, very grateful. And it would be a shame for a woman to feel that she can't do it all, because we are in Kenya. So you can get the help, and it's affordable, and you can still run a business. And the other thing I've definitely learned about this journey on a personal level, don't let anyone tell you you can't do it, because you can.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an incredible note to end it all.
Yeah.
I think because I think a lot of women struggle with confidence. And so, yeah, you can do it all. You can do family, you can do work.
So I was just going to say that confidence is self-doubt. And I don't know why we all women suffer from it, because I think men suffer less from it. It might be childhood culture, people, encouraging men to do. And we see that, right? It's an innate. But sometimes I also suffer from self-doubt, and I remind myself, haha, that's so funny. I just pin it as, that's really funny, I think you can do it. And it's almost like having your internal brain wired. Every minute I think I can't do this, or someone tells me, for example, if I get off an investor call and they're like, oh, I think your company valuation is too high, I'll have a look at it, and then I'll be like, no, actually, I disagree with you. And just knowing when to say, I don't agree with you. I'm going to go, I don't agree with you. I'm going to consider it. I'll get some other opinions, but actually coming back to your gut instinct. By the way, we are women. Our gut instinct is incredibly accurate. So the minute you feel that you can do something and you feel it in your bones, just go for it. And I think that's really important, because everyone suffers, well, especially females suffer from self-doubt.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Radhika, for sharing your story,
Yeah.
everything you're doing at Ndovu, and even sharing a little bit about your family. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I just have one final question, which is, what are you looking forward to over the next year or even longer? What are you looking forward to as an entrepreneur? Yes.
Oh, okay. So as an entrepreneur, I'm really, really looking forward to the growth that's going to come in Africa. I know right now, listening to political news, we've had 6 elections last year. We had floods, we had drought come in, we had everything happen to us. We now have the Trump administration that's not giving funding to African countries and globally. But I'm really, really excited, because I do believe that the rate at which Africans are excelling when in terms of technology, in 10 years' time, majority of African families would have invested. And they will have some sort of investment, whether it's in a money market fund locally or globally. And that's where growth comes from, because you're taking the little that you have and you're investing it smartly and responsibly to actually help you get to the next level. And I do think that technology has really changed the way businesses are done. AI is on the brink. For those of you who haven't spent maybe an hour, go onto YouTube, look at how you can use AI to improve your daily life or the job that you do, because you can actually reduce tasks significantly. And I'm just really excited to see what does that bring to us in the next year, in the 5 years to 10 years. But I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm really excited about what is to come.
Amazing. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining us. And we will catch you on the next episode, where we talk about women in business, entrepreneurship, and all things problem solving.